Before we get to our mock draft today, on a video earlier this week, I asked who the Browns running back was when you first became a fan. And Ben Broski, the living legend that he is, sent in a super thanks saying it was Jabbar back in 1999. Never forget when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the basketball player, sued the Browns, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But aside from that, I appreciate Ben sending in a super thanks to let me know. But now I want to ask a slightly different question before we get into our mock draft. Who was the Browns head coach when you first became a fan? Scroll on down, get in the comment section, let me know. I always love hearing from Browns fans. And also, if you want to be like Ben, feel free to super thanks, and we'll get that on screen for a future video. It is mock draft season, baby. I've got my first Browns 2024 NFL mock draft. I actually looked at my 2023 mock draft last year around this time, and it wasn't awful. I didn't get a single pick correct, and I don't think anyone gets a single pick correct in January. But it is still fun to go through the mock draft process and kind of get an idea of who's going to be available in what rounds, but also it's so early in the draft process, we really don't have a clear idea as to who's going to go where. And also, it's really tough to do mock drafts accurately before free agency because you don't know what the Browns' needs are. Like, the Browns could go out and sign 2 wide receivers, and they're probably not going to go wide receiver in round 2. But for now, let's have some fun with it, and let's get into my first mock draft, beginning with a wide receiver, Washington's Ja'Lynn Polk. So, the former Texas Tech Red Raider transferred to Washington and had 2 phenomenal seasons for the Huskies, especially this past year, lining up next to Rome Odunze and also having Michael Penix slinging the rock. He's 6'2", 204 pounds, which I like for what the Browns are looking for in a receiver, right? Somewhat similar size to Cedric Tillman, and I think that complements what Deshaun Watson looks for in a wide receiver, kind of a jump ball-esque receiver. The Browns could surely use some more speed, and Ja'Lynn Polk is not going to bring you as much speed as maybe some other receivers in this class do, but he's got great hand strength. He has the ability to win contested catches at a very high rate for a lot of the other players in this draft class that are going to be available in round 2, because, yes, I would love to have a Marvin Harrison or a Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, but let's be real, that's not happening in round number 2. The cons for Polk are kind of lacks that overall burst when you get towards the middle of the field and trying to turn on the burners after the catch. But the guy had 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. He was a big play factor for them, right? Nearly averaging 17 yards a pop. The Washington offense this year was tremendous. He was somewhat overshadowed due to Rome Odunze, but I think that might serve to Cleveland's benefit because without Rome Odunze, he might go a little earlier in the draft, getting even more attention in that Washington offense. Now, the Browns' wide receiver room could stand to add some more talent overall to it. However, a lot can change, like I said a few minutes ago, between now and the end of free agency. If the Browns go out and sign a big-name wide receiver, that's probably going to bump down wide receiver in their priority list. However, we did see last year Cleveland trade for Elijah Moore, and what do they do with their first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft? They went with Cedric Tillman, another wide receiver. So at the end, I go back to what Andrew Berry echoed in his press conference last year when talking about what the Browns look for in their draft process, which is they look for horse traits. And I thought that was a great example. What are horse traits? Well, you've got ducks and horses, right? Ducks can swim a little bit. They can fly a little bit. They can waddle. But they don't do any of those 3 things very well. Horses can't fly. Horses can't swim. But, man, they can run. And so I think Ja'Lynn Polk's horse trait is he can win those 50-50 contested catches. And that's something that Andrew Berry and this Browns draft war room will pick notice on. Now, let me know what position you think Cleveland should go out and draft first in this upcoming draft. Of course, once free agency is done, we'll have a better idea. But as things stand right now, who do you think, or what position do you think the Browns should be targeting first in the 2024 draft? Now, let's move on to my second selection for the Browns. Coming in round number 3, 86 overall, I'm going running back Trey Benson out of Florida State. Kind of taking a little bit of a page out of Draft Day's book here. Now, Benson, 6'1", 223 pounds. He's got that really good distant track kind of speed. And he's got a good burst, but he's not quick like a cat. Now, the con for Benson is he's not the best at pass protection, and teams do value that because if you can't keep a quarterback healthy, then you're not going to get on the field early in your career. Another major con for Benson is similar to a handful of running backs in this draft class. He suffered a major knee injury back in 2020. Now, since then, he has played a lot of football and he's played really good football. But the number one running back in this draft class out of Texas, he tore his ACL back in November. Blake Corum out of Michigan, another top back in this year's draft class. He suffered a knee injury last season. So Benson comes into the draft coming off a 14-touchdown season for the Seminoles, averaging nearly 6 yards a pop. And in round number 3, this might be a bit early for him, but running back could be a huge need for the Browns. And with there not being a ton of backs in this draft class altogether, Cleveland may regret waiting to get one until day 3 of the draft if their top 3 guys are all taken because teams get word there's not many good running backs this year. If you need one, take one early. Don't wait on it. Hopefully by April, though, the Browns have a much better idea as to what to expect out of Nick Chubb in 2024. Will he be ready towards week 1? Will he start the year most likely on the PUP list? Could he miss the first half of the season, right? Those are all very important questions that they probably don't have the answers to in black and white in January. Now, come April, if Nick Chubb is making remarkable progress on his rehab, then they probably don't feel the need to go running back in round 3. But if they don't get great word on Nick Chubb's rehab, maybe that makes running back a bigger need for them in the draft. Now, before we get on to the rest of my mock drafts for today, if you want more Browns mock drafts, draft content, targets, rumors, all that stuff, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 33,500 subscribers, so lock yourself in for the best Browns offseason content. Moving on to round number 5, because the Browns do not have a 4th-round draft pick, I'm taking Ohio State's tight end, Cade Stover. So all the Buckeye fans watching right now will definitely appreciate this pick here. He's 6'4", 251 pounds. He's a very physical runner, right? For all the Buckeyes fans watching at the moment, they will attest that when Stover got the ball in space, he was going to run over someone. He was kind of looking for contact at times. Now, he did have a good ability to sneak behind the second level of the defense and get behind those linebackers and in between them and the safeties, but he does not really have a horse trait. And I know that's very contradictory for what the Browns look for. He doesn't have that elite speed or burst. He doesn't really have one major thing that sticks out about him. But when you're in round number 5 and you need a tight end, this might be a situation where you go, beggars can't be choosers. Now, Stover's stats this season after, flip-flopping all over the field when coming in as a linebacker and moving to defense. He was really in every single position at some point except for quarterback for Ohio State. 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had some really nice plays for Ohio State this past season, but this is more of a pick for need rather than a best player available. Because when we look at Cleveland's tight end room, they know they've got a great player in David Njoku, but they know that they need some depth. And Jordan Akins may very well be released because he didn't produce all that well in his first season with the Browns. Harrison Bryant is a free agent. We've never seen Zaire Mitchell-Payton take the field in a regular season game. So the Browns could move on from their 2 backup tight ends, and they may have to go get just the best tight end available in round number 5. Now, before we get on to the rest of my mock draft, make sure you get started with your New Year's resolutions. If you're trying to maybe save some money, eat better, lose some weight with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. So skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue, and all the expenses for getting takeout. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible too. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or you can pause or reschedule your delivery times anytime. Factor has everything you need for a week of flavorful, nutritious eats. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off your order. Once again, that's factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. I'm going with back-to-back Buckeyes. Why? Because the Browns did that kind of last year, right? They went with DeJuan Jones and Luke Whippler, not necessarily consecutively. They got Ronnie Hickman as a UDFA. There is clearly some affinity towards Cleveland down to Columbus. So how about the linebacker, Tommy Eichenberg? 6'2", 239 pounds. I wouldn't necessarily call him maybe the leader or the face of that Ohio State defense this past year, but he was definitely a crucial member of it coming back for a 5th year. Now, 3-year starter that played with a high motor, very much a coachable guy, great effort. He was just somewhat born to play linebacker, right? He loved contact. He loved being violent. He loved making big plays. He loved going after running backs, receivers. He was a coach's pet, maybe, if you will. But a con for Eichenberg is he's not very good in pass coverage, and that's why you're going to see him dip into round number 3 because he does not have that great elite speed to go foot for foot with running backs and tight ends all that well. And so that's something the Browns will either have to game plan around or at least try and coach him up to because you really can't add speed. But this Browns defensive coaching staff with Jim Schwartz, they have gotten a lot of really good play out of some of their players that weren't overly handsomely paid or drafted super duper early. Eichenberg, though, this past season for the Buckeyes, 2.5 tackles for loss after getting 82 tackles, going along with a sack and a forced fumble. Round number 5, it's tough to find great players. And once again, I am drafting for need rather than best player available because the Browns may have a huge need at linebacker. When you look at Cleveland's linebacker room, the only starter under contract for 2024 is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Now, they may try and bring Walker and or Taki back, but I don't know if they're going to bring both guys back. So if they let Walker walk, no pun intended, after another season with an injury cutting his year short, or Taki, who didn't have a tremendously, let's say, consistent year, I would say that's accurate, right? Kind of up and down in stretches. If they let one of those guys walk, they're going to be looking for a new linebacker, and they may look in free agency, but they're just going to have to fill out their roster. And Eichenberg can come in and try and help provide some depth at that position. Moving on to round number 6 with 205, I go with defensive lineman out of Georgia, Zion Logue. So let's talk about Zion Logue because he is 6'5", 310 pounds. He's an above-average run stopper. He's a bit of a tree stump, but he's more mobile than just your average tree stump because he didn't really play nose tackle all that much, right? I don't want you to think this is the next Siaka Ika. No, this is more of a 3-technique, a slightly bigger, not even slightly, bigger version of Jordan Elliott. Maybe an in-between Jordan Elliott and Siaka Ika or Dalvin Tomlinson, where he's not the best pass rusher, but you shouldn't ask your 3-technique to be the guy that gets to the quarterback first. He was able to do that for Georgia this past year, but the Browns' defensive line, they have Maurice Hurst as a free agent, Jordan Elliott's a free agent, Shelby Harris is a free agent. They may not be able to bring all 3 of those guys back. And if not, they could turn to the draft to provide some depth if the plan is, hey, let's roll with Dalvin Tomlinson, Siaka Ika, some free agent, and a rookie. This may be the rookie that joins that 4-man rotation at defensive line. Now, to round out the mock draft, we have another 6th-round pick where I went offensive line out of the U, Javion Cohen. So, a guard for the Hurricanes because I am once again thinking for the future here. And this time I'm thinking for 2025 because I have some bad news. It seems unlikely the Browns are going to be able to hold on to Wyatt Teller and Joel Petonio for 2025. Again, not 2024, but thinking an extra year down the line. And so the Browns might look to jumpstart their replacements for one of these 2 guys by drafting a guy this year. That way they can have their whole rookie season working with, fingers crossed, Bill Callahan. And that way they can get ready to maybe make a bigger step forward in their sophomore season. but Teller's got a near $22 million cap hit in 2025. Petonio's got a near $23 million cap hit. They may well look to extend one of these two players. They've already restructured their contracts, so they've already slapped on a bunch of void years. It seems like one of these two guys may be gone after 2024. My money would be on Wyatt Teller. Joel Petonio just screams Cleveland Brown for life. He's still playing at a high level despite the injuries. If he comes back healthy, the Browns may be looking to find a replacement for Teller in 2025, and they kind of get that process started in 2024. To finish up my mock draft, I go cornerback in round number 7, Willie Roberts out of La Tech. Why? Because Andrew Berry is addicted to drafting corners, right? He has shown, and the whole NFL has shown, that on defense, if there is a spot to have depth at, it is cornerback. Defensive end, edge rusher, and cornerback are two positions where you can never have enough guys. So do the Browns need a new corner? No, not necessarily, but they could be looking for some depth because they did lose a couple of their bottom of the roster guys to free agency, like Art Green or AJ Green, I beg your pardon, went over to Minnesota. And if they're looking to provide some extra security after even backups like Cameron Mitchell, in round number 7, you're just looking to fill out the rest of your roster and also trying to find some talent, but also maybe look at positions where you could always have, or you can never have enough depth. To wrap up the show, let's pick a card. I've got Cohen with me again today. Cohen, which card are you going with?
Okay, so number 2 or round 2, you picked a wide receiver, the Browns.
Yeah.
Have a number 2 wide receiver in number.
Okay.
So I'm going to go 2, and it's in my heart, so 2 of hearts.
Wow, that was some thinking. I like it. I like the blueprint to that point. I'm going to go with a 9 of diamonds. No reason. Okay. 3 of spades. 3 of spades. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and we will catch up later.